hơi lệch. Hey, xin chào. Chào. Hôm nay là ngày mùng 3 tháng 6 năm 2024. Ở đây mình có 2 cốc. Một là nước cam mà gần đây mình hay uống, và một cốc bơ, một cốc bơ rất đầy. Mình rất là thích ăn bơ bởi vì là nó healthy ấy. Nó healthy, màu xanh, mình thích cái màu xanh nữa. Nhưng có một cái ăn bơ thì nó phải cho đường. Và mặc dù là mình đi ra quán mình ăn ấy, thì mình lúc nào cũng luôn luôn là có ít đường rồi, nhưng mà ăn ở quán luôn luôn thấy ngọt. Khi đó mà về nhà ăn thì mình thấy cho cực kỳ nhiều đường ấy, thì nó mới hơi ngọt vào một chút thôi. Mình chắc mình đóng cửa này. Thì kiểu mình cũng là người ít ăn hoa quả ấy. Mình không phải lười mà mình mình lười, mình thích ăn, không, mình ăn thấy ngon nhưng mà mình lười ăn hoa quả. Và trong này thì đây, hôm nay bình thường mình hay uống nước cam để cho nó cảm thấy nó tốt thôi, chứ còn mình không phải là người thèm. Nhưng mà bơ thì lâu mà mình mới mua, lý do đơn giản là bởi vì mua bơ nó khó mua ấy. Nhưng mà đợt vừa rồi thì đi đường và thấy cách đây hôm sáng chủ nhật thì đi đường thấy bán là lúc mua ra 1,5 cân, 1,4 cân mới có 50.000, khá rẻ, mà bơ 34 luôn. Nhưng mà đấy, mình quay lại một cái là muốn ăn những cái này thì lại phải cho nhiều đường, rất là nhiều đường vào, thì tự dưng này thành ra mình muốn healthy nhưng mà lại nạp đường vào mọi người. Hôm nay thì có thể nghe cái giọng mình cũng thấy là hôm nay mình bị ốm một chút, bị cúm từ hôm thứ 7 rồi, nhưng mà nó đỡ hơn rất nhiều rồi, đỡ ho luôn. Không, nếu mà nói về ho thì phải từ hôm thứ 6 mình đã ho rồi đúng không? Nhưng mà bây giờ đỡ nhiều rồi, không còn sốt nữa. Và chỉ còn giọng thì hơi bị cúm một chút thôi. Thì quay lại một chút là cái hôm thứ 6 mình có kể là mình đi về sớm để mình sửa cái xe. Thì đúng như plan ban đầu, đúng như cái gọi là anh chủ anh đã báo giá cho mình, thì cái xe mình sửa hết 3 triệu. Nhưng mà thực sự là đi rất là sướng. Nó cảm giác nó xe này mạnh hơn rất là nhiều ấy. Mình ga nhẹ một xíu mà nó đã lên rồi, mà đi rất là êm. Tiếng máy nó cũng, khi mà mình nổ máy lần đầu tiên mình nghe, mình đi khoảng 10 mét rồi mình đã phát hiện ra là tiếng máy của nó rất là khác rồi. Nó rất là êm, rất là nhẹ nhàng. Mình không biết đấy là do mình kiểu chỉ sử dụng cái thính âm, cái tai nghe của mình để mình đánh giá, hay là thực sự nó êm thật. Nhưng mà có một cái là không biết là do nó mới sửa xong, cái chỗ đấy nó là mới như nào, nhưng mà mình thấy là ví dụ cỡ 10 lần mình đi số thì mình hay bị kiểu không lên được ấy, mình phải lên lại ấy. Nó hơi bị kèm một chút, mặc dù là khi mà nhẫm được ấy thì nó rất là nuột, nó cạch cái rất là khớp. Mình sửa hết 3 triệu và nó là thay bố nồi sau, dán bố nồi trước, thay piston xi măng Supac, vớt Supac, bộ rong đầu, sửa rất là nhiều. Mình thấy hài lòng, mình thấy là nó rất là đáng, bởi vì cái xe là cái thứ mà mình đi hàng ngày, mà đi nó kiểu mình bị kích thích luôn đấy. Hôm đấy là mình sửa về là hôm chiều thứ 7, chủ nhật mình không đi đâu cả. Mình kiểu cứ muốn chờ đến thứ hai, hoặc là cứ muốn xách xe ra ngoài để đi một vòng kiểu xa một chút ấy. Nhưng mà hôm nay đi thì không, khá là phê. Rồi, thì như hôm trước mình còn nói là hôm nay mình sẽ xem một cái clip phỏng vấn của The Verge, là một chuyên trang về công nghệ. Đây, màn này. phỏng vấn CEO của Google về AI. Thì mặc dù là mình cũng được giới thiệu clip này qua một cái podcast mình hay xem, Buổi podcast, nhưng mà mình nghĩ là cũng để xem, bởi vì là trong cái podcast đấy có giới thiệu là CEO Google là một người rất là điềm tĩnh, là một người rất là nice, nhưng mà đã có những lúc khoảnh khắc ở trong cái cuộc phỏng vấn này mà ông ấy đã bị kiểu bị push, bị đẩy khá là mạnh ấy. Bởi vì cái việc mà AI bây giờ nó đang ở một cái vị trí đó là rất là nhiều câu hỏi đặt ra, liệu đây có phải là thứ giúp loài người rất là nhiều hay không, hay là đây là thứ sẽ làm tổn hại đến loài người rất là nhiều. Thì đây, cùng xem nhé.
Sundar Pichai, you are the CEO of both Alphabet and Google. Welcome to Decoder.
Eli, good to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. I feel like I talk to you every year at Google I/O, and we talk about all the things you've announced. There's a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot of AI news to talk about. As you know, I am particularly interested in the future of the web, so I really want to talk about that with you. But I figured I would start with an easy one. Do you think language is the same as intelligence?
Wow, it's not an easy question. I don't think I'm the expert on it.
Khó vậy.
Wow.
Do you think language...
Được ạ. Nhưng bật cái sắp tiếng Anh đã, tự dưng nó sắp tiếng Việt hết này.
Language is the same as intelligence, but I figured I would start with an easy one. Do you think language is the same as intelligence?
Wow, it's not an easy question. I don't think I'm the expert on it. I think language does encode a lot of intelligence, probably more than people thought. Explains the successes of large language models to a great extent. But I think my intuition tells me, as humans, the way we consume information, I think there's a lot more to it than language alone. But I'd say language is a lot more than people think it is. Yeah.
The reason I asked that question to start is I look at the announcements at I/O with AI and what you're doing. I look at your competitors with AI and what they're doing. And everything is very language heavy, right? It's LLMs that have really led to this explosion of interest and innovation and investment. And I wonder if the intelligence is increasing at the same rate as the facility with language. And I kind of don't see it, to be perfectly honest. I see computers getting much better at language and actually in some cases getting dumber. And I'm wondering if you see that same gap.
Yeah, it's a great question though. Part of the reason we made Gemini natively multimodal is so that, it was trained, with audio, video, text, images, and code. And you're beginning to see glimpses of it now, but it hasn't all actually made its way into products fully yet. So maybe the next cycle, when we have multimodality working on the input and output side, and we are training models using all that, I think that'll encapsulate a lot more than just today, which is primarily text-based. So I think that continuum will shift as we, take in a lot more information that way. So maybe there's more to come.
The reason I ask that is it feels like last year, the tagline was bold but responsible.
Chỉnh cái màn lên cao một chút. Vì mình nhìn vào cái sub á, nó hơi thấp. Okay, hơn.
That's Google's approach. You said it again on stage this year. And then I look at our reactions to AI getting things wrong.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're getting more and more tempered over time. I'll give you an example. In the demos you had yesterday, you showed...
Mình thử check xem chất lượng livestream hôm nay nào. Live rồi nè. Một cốc một cốc bơ rất đầy. Mình rất là thích ăn bơ bởi vì là nó healthy ấy. Nó healthy, màu xanh, mình thích cái màu xanh nữa. Nhưng có một cái ăn bơ thì nó phải cho đường. Và mặc dù là mình đi ra quán mình ăn ấy, thì mình lúc nào cũng luôn luôn là có ít đường rồi. nhưng mà ăn ở quán luôn luôn thấy ngọt. Khi đó mà về nhà ăn thì mình phải cho cực kỳ nhiều đường ấy thì nó mới hơi hơi ngọt vào một chút thôi. Chắc mình đóng cửa. Mình lười ăn hoa quả. Và trong này thì đây, hôm nay bình thường mình không biết là do cái giọng của mình nó nói nhanh quá và nó hay nuốt chữ, hay là nó nối chữ, nhưng mà hay là do cái mic này nó không phải do cái mic mà do mình đang bật cái chống ồn ấy. Nhưng mà mình không thích cái kiểu nói này, nó cứ bị mất từ. Nhưng thôi kệ đi. Và lại đây.
Multimodal video search of someone trying to fix a broken film camera. And the answer was just wrong, right? Like sort of straightforwardly, the answer that was highlighted in the video was just open the back of the film camera and jiggle it. And it's like, well, that would ruin all of your film. And no one who had an intelligent understanding of how that camera would just suggest that.
Ironically, I was talking to the team.
Yeah.
They, the team as part of making the video, they consulted with a bunch of subject matter experts who all reviewed the answer and thought it was okay. I understand the nuance. I agree with you. Obviously, you don't want to expose your film by taking it outside of a dark room. There are certain contexts in which it makes sense to do that.
Sure.
If you don't want to break the camera, and if what you've taken is not that valuable,
Sure.
all right, it makes sense to do that. It's a good example of, you're right, there is a lot of nuance in it. And, part of what I hope search serves to do is to, gives you a lot more context and around that answer and allows people to explore it deeply. But I think, these are the kind of things, for us to keep getting better at. But to your earlier question, look, I think I do see the capability frontier continuing to move forward. I think we're a bit limited if we were just training on text data, but I think we're all making it more multimodal. So I see more opportunities there.
Let's talk about search. This is the thing that I'm most interested in. I think this is the thing that is changing the most. Sort of in an abstract way, it's the thing that's the most exciting.
Yeah.
Right. You can ask a computer a question and it will just like happily tell you an answer.
Yeah.
That feels new. I see the excitement around it. Yesterday, you announced AI previews are coming to search. That's an extension of what was called the search generative experience, announced and roll out to everyone in the United States. I would describe the reactions to that news from the people who make websites is fundamentally apocalyptic. The CEO of the News Media Alliance said to CNN, "This will be catastrophic to our traffic." Another media CEO forwarded me a newsletter, and the headline was, "This is a death blow to publishers." Were you expecting that kind of response to rolling out AI previews in search?
Look, it's, I definitely, I recall in 2010, there were headlines that the web is dead, right? When I've long worked on the web, obviously, I deeply care about it. When the transition from desktop to mobile happened, there was a lot of concerns because people are like, oh, it's a small screen. How will people read content? Like, why would they look at content? We had started introducing what we internally called web answers in 2014. Which are featured snippets outside. So you had questions like that. I remain optimistic. Empirically, what we are seeing, throughout these years, I think human curiosity is boundless.
Yeah.
When people come, and it's something I think we have deeply understood in search, more than any other company, I think we will differentiate ourselves in our approach. Even any other
Hôm nay mình cứ khi mà hôm nay mình viết, mình chat với cả đồng nghiệp trong công ty, mình cũng muốn tìm cái differentiate.
Company, I think we will differentiate.
Differentiate, tạo sự khác biệt. Mình biết nói như nào nhưng mà mình không biết viết như nào. Thế là cuối cùng mình dùng từ differentiate. We will differentiate
ourselves in our approach, even through this transition. I think as a company, we realize the value of this ecosystem, and it's symbiotic. If there isn't a rich ecosystem making unique and useful content, what are you putting together and organizing, right? And so we feel it. I would say through all these transitions, things have played out a bit differently. I think high quality content, users are looking for it. The counterintuitive part, which I think almost always plays out, is it's not a zero-sum game in terms of AI overviews. People are responding very positively to it. It's one of the most positive changes I've seen in search based on metrics we see. But people do jump off on it. And when you give context around it, they actually jump off with, it actually helps them understand. And so they engage with content underneath too. In fact, if you put content and links within AI overviews, they get higher click-through rates than if you put it outside of AI overviews.
Yeah.
But I understand the sentiment, right? It's a big change. These are disruptive moments. AI is a big platform shift, and people are projecting out. And people are putting a lot into creating content. It's their businesses. So I understand the perspective. So I'm not surprised we are engaging with a lot of players, both directly and indirectly. But I remain optimistic how it'll actually play out. But it's a good question. But happy to talk about it more.
So I think that I have this concept I call Google Zero, which is born of my own paranoia. Every refer that The Verge has ever had has gone up and then it's gone down. And Google is the last large-scale refer of traffic on the web for almost every website now. And I can see that for a lot of sites, Google Zero is playing out. Their Google traffic has gone to zero, particularly independent sites that aren't part of some huge publishing conglomerate. So there's an air purifier blog that we cover called HouseFresh. There's a gaming site we cover called Retro Dodo. Both of these sites have said, look, our Google traffic went to zero. Our businesses are doomed. Is that the right outcome here of all this? The people who care so much about video games or air purifiers that they actually started websites and made the content for the web are the ones getting hurt the most in the platform shift?
No, look, I mean, it's always difficult to talk about individual cases, right?
Sure.
And at the end of the day, we are trying to satisfy user expectations, and users are voting with their feet, and people are trying to figure out what's valuable to them. And we are doing it at scale, and I can't answer on the particular side.
But it's that thing where
Doing with the scale đó là thứ mà mình học được gần đây mà vài năm trở lại đây. Mấy rất là nhiều thứ ở trên đời này nó khó bởi vì là nó là một cái scale rất là lớn. Scale là gì? Scale là quy mô, nó là một cái quy mô rất là lớn. Như các bạn đơn giản nói, bạn luộc một quả trứng thì ai cũng làm được 10 phút là xong. Nhưng mà luộc 1.000 quả trứng là chuyện khác, luộc 10.000 quả trứng là chuyện khác, và luộc 100.000 quả trứng là một chuyện khác nữa. Vì như đấy, lúc đấy thì không thể dùng một cái nồi xong rồi scale lên theo kiểu là một cái nồi 10 quả rồi 100.000 thì là 10.000 nồi được. Bởi vì là 10.000 nồi tương đương với 10.000 bếp ga, 10 bếp ga tương đương với 10.000 bình ga. Rồi nếu mà dùng bếp điện thì là 10.000 bếp điện. 10.000 bếp điện thì thử nghĩ xem 10.000 bếp điện mà nhân với cả công suất của bếp điện bây giờ bình thường là 2.000 đúng không? Mình tính thì nhẹ nhẹ đi là 1.000 đi, 1.000 watt bật 50% công suất thôi, thì 10.000 nhân với cả 1.000 là cần bao nhiêu watt rồi. Và khi đấy nó cần cái đường dây tải như nào, và lúc đấy là không phải mình là người quyết định nữa, bởi vì cái đường dây tải là đường dây của nhà nước. Thì đó, nó doing có nghĩa là làm một cái gì với cả một cái dạng là scale ấy, nó cũng rất là một thứ rất là khó với tuyệt đại đa số trường hợp luôn.
And I can't answer on the particular side.
But it's that thing where it's a bunch of small players are feeling the hurt loudly, they're saying it, our businesses are going away. And that's the thing you're saying, we're engaging, we're talking, but this thing that is happening very clearly.
But it's not clear to me that's a uniform trend. I have to look at data on an aggregate, right? So anecdotally, when people give there are always times when people have come in an area and said, me as a specific site have done worse. Mm-hmm. But that may be a moment in which that's because it's like an individual restaurant coming and saying, I've started getting less customers this year.
Yeah.
People have stopped eating food or whatever it is, right? That's not true necessarily, right? Yeah. Some other restaurant might have opened next door, which is doing very well, right? So it's tough to say. I think from our standpoint, when I look at historically, even over the past decade, we have provided more traffic to the ecosystem and we've driven that growth, right? So that, and you may be making a secondary point around small sites versus more aggregating sites, which is the second point you're talking about. Yeah, ironically, there are times when we have done changes to actually send more traffic to the smaller sites. Some of the sites which complain a lot are the aggregators in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So should the traffic go to the restaurant which has created a website with their menus and stuff, or or people writing about these restaurants? These are deep questions. I'm not saying there's a right answer.
But you're about to flip over the whole apple cart, right? You're about to start answering some of these questions very directly. And where that content comes from in the future, I think you want the people who care the most to publish that information directly to be the thing that you synthesize.
Yeah,
and the incentives for that seem to be getting lower and lower on the web anyway.
Yeah, I feel it's the opposite. How do I?
Đây. Đây là lúc mà hơi bối rối một chút.
If anything, I feel like through AI overviews, when you give people context, yes, there are times people come and all they want is a quick answer and they bounce back.
Yeah.
But overall, when we look at user journeys, when you give the context, it also exposes people to areas branching off, jumping off points. And so they engage more. So actually, this is what drives growth over time. I look at like desktop to mobile, questions were similar. In fact, I think it was a cover I almost tempted to pull out saying the web is dead. And there was a Google Zero argument 10 years ago. But you yourself made the point that it's not an accident. I think we still remain as one of the largest referrers.
Yeah.
Because we've cared about it deeply for a long, long time. I look at our journey, even the last 1 year through search generative experience. I constantly, found us prioritizing approaches which would send more traffic while meeting user expectations.
Yeah.
We think that through deeply and we actually change our approach. And if there are areas where we feel like we fully haven't gotten it right, we are careful about rolling it there. But I think what's positively surprising us is that people engage more, and that will lead to more growth over time, I think, for high quality content. Yeah. And there's a lot of debate about what's high quality content. And, but I think I would hope that, at least in my experience, I value independent sources. I value smaller things. I want more authentic voices. And I think those are important attributes we are trying to constantly improve.
You mentioned that you think more people will click through links in AI previews. I think Liz, who runs search, had a blog post making the same claim. There's no public data that says that this is true yet. Are you going to release that data? Are you going to show people that there's no views?
Cái bài đoạn này thì hơi bị mất tập trung.
You mentioned that you think more people will click through links in AI previews. I think Liz, who runs search, had a blog post making the same claim. There's no public data that says that this is true yet. Are you going to release that data? Are you going to show people that this is actually happening?
At an aggregate, I think people, we rely on this value of the ecosystem, right? If people over time on an aggregate don't see value, if website owners don't see value coming back from Google, I think we'll pay a price.
Yeah.
I think so. We have the right incentive structure. But obviously, look, I think we are careful about.
Từ từ nhá, mình không xem phỏng vấn Sundar Pichai nhiều. Sundar Pichai, không biết đọc đúng không? Mà đoạn này mình cảm thấy ông ấy hơi né tránh ánh mắt. Ban đầu có thế không? Đấy là style, có vẻ như đây là style của ông ấy.
Multimodal is so that,
Đoạn này ban đầu rất là
strain, with audio, video.
Đoạn này vẫn là rất là ánh mắt rất là thẳng này. Mặc dù nó cũng có cái thói quen nhìn xuống như vậy.
Text, images and code. And you're beginning to see glimpses of it now, but it hasn't all actually made its way into product traffic while meeting user expectation. Voices, and I think those are important attributes we are trying to constantly improve.
You mentioned that you think more people will click in the same claim. People that this is actually happening?
At an aggregate, I think people, mean, we rely on this value of the ecosystem, right? If people over time on an aggregate don't see value, if the website owners don't see value coming back from Google, I think we'll pay a price.
Yeah.
I think so. We have the right incentive structure. But obviously, look, I think we are careful about, there are a lot of individual variations, and some of it is users choosing which way to go. And so I think that part is hard to sort out. But I do think we are committed at an aggregate level to do the right thing.
Yeah. I was reading some SEO community trade publications this morning responding to the changes. And one of the things that was pointed out was that in Search Console, it doesn't show you if the clicks are coming from a featured snippet or an AI preview or just a regular Google 10 blue links. Would you break that out? Would you commit to breaking that out so people can actually audit and verify and measure that the AI previews are sending out as much traffic as you say they are?
You know, I think it's a good question for the search team. They think about this, you know, at a deeper level than, you know, I do. I think we're constantly trying to give more visibility in a way, but we also don't want people to, we want people to create the content that's good, and like we are trying to rank it and organize it. So I think there's a balance to be had. You know, the more we spec it out, then the more people design for that. So I think there's a trade-off there. I think so. It's not clear to me what the right answer is.
Yeah, that trade-off between what you spec out and say and what people make.
Yeah,
I think that's been the story of the web for quite some time, and it had reached, I think, a steady state. Whether you think that steady state was good or bad, it was at least a steady state. Now that state is changing, right? It's like AI is obviously changing it. The 10 blue links model, the old steady state, very much based on an exchange, right? We're going to let you index our content. We're going to featured snippets. We're going to let you see all of our information. In return, you will send us traffic. That formed the basis of what you might call a fair use argument, right? Google is going to index the stuff. There's not going to be a lot of payments in the middle. In the AI era, no one knows how that's going to go, right? There are some major lawsuits happening. There are deals being made by Google, OpenAI for training data. Do you think it's appropriate for Google to start making more deals to pay for data to train on search results? Because those AI snippets are not really the same as the 10 blue links or anything else you've done in the past.
Yeah, we have, I mean, it's a good question. To be very clear, there's a myth that Google's search has been 10 blue links for a, you know, like, you know, I look at our mobile experience over many, many years, right? And we've had answers, we allow you to refine questions and so on. We've had featured snippets, right? You know, and so on. So, you know, the product has evolved significantly. I think, but having said that, you know, as a company, even as we look at AI, you know, we've had Showcase, we have done licensing deals. To the extent there is value, you know, we obviously think there is a case for fair use in the context of beneficial transformative use. Not going to argue that with you as given your background, but I think there are cases in which we will see dedicated incremental value to our models, and you know, we'll be looking at partnerships to get at that. Yeah, so I do think we'll approach it that way.
Let me ask this question a different way, and I won't do too much fair use analysis with you, I promise, as much as I like doing it. Yeah, there are some news reports recently that OpenAI had trained its video generation product Sora on YouTube. How did you feel when you heard that news?
Look, we don't know the details. I think, you know, our YouTube team is following up and trying to understand. Look, we have terms and conditions, right? And we would expect people to abide by those terms and conditions, right? And so I think when you build a product, and so that's how I felt about it, right? You know.
So you felt like they had broken your terms and conditions, or potentially, or if they had, that wouldn't have been appropriate.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
The reason I asked that question, which is a much more emotional question, is okay, maybe that's not appropriate. And you know, what OpenAI has said, whatever they've said, is essentially in the order of, we've trained on publicly available information, which means we found it on the web. Most people don't get to make that deal, right? They don't have a YouTube team of licensing professionals who can say, we had terms and conditions. They don't even have terms and conditions. They're just putting their stuff on the internet. Do you understand why emotionally there's the reaction to AI from the creative community, that it feels the same way as you might have felt about OpenAI training on YouTube?
Absolutely. Look, I mean,
Website
I think
owners.
be it website owners or content creators or artists, I can understand how emotional a transformation this is. And I think part of the reason you saw even through Google I/O when we are working on products like music generation, we've really taken an approach by which we are working first to make tools for artists. We haven't put a general purpose tool out there for anyone to create songs, right? So the way we have taken that approach in many of these cases is to put the creator community as much at the center of it as possible. We've long done that with YouTube. And through it all, I think we are trying to figure out what are the right ways to approach this.
Yeah.
But it is a transformative moment as well. And, there are other players in this. We are not the only player in the ecosystem. But to your earlier question, yes, I understand people's emotions through it. I definitely am very empathetic to how people are perceiving this moment.
Because they feel like it's a taking, right? That they put work on the internet and the big companies are coming, they're taking it for free, and then they're making products that they are charging $20 a month for, or that will lift their creative work and remix it for other people. And the thing that makes it feel like a taking is very little value accrues back to them. And that's really the thing I'm asking about, is how do you bring the value back to them? How do you bring incentives back to the small creator, the independent business that's saying, look, this feels like a taking?
The whole reason we have spent, I think we've been successful on platforms like YouTube is we've worked hard to answer this question well, right? And so you'll continue to see us dig deep about how to do this well. And I think the players who end up doing better here will have more winning strategies over time. I genuinely believe that. And, I think across everything we do, we have to sort that out. Anytime you're running a platform, I think it's the basis on which you can build a sustainable long-term platform. So I view through this AI moment, over time, there'll be players who will do better by the content creators, which support their platforms. And whoever does it better will emerge as the winners. I think that, I believe that to be a tenet, right, in these things over time.
Yeah. One thing that I think is really interesting about the YouTube comparison in particular, it's been described to me many times that YouTube is a licensing business, right? You license a lot of content from the creators. You obviously pay them back in terms of the advertising model there. The music industry has a huge licensing business with YouTube. It is an existential relationship, I think, for both sides. Susan Wojcicki used to describe YouTube as a music service, which I think confused everyone until you looked at the data. Universal Music is mad about AI on YouTube. YouTube reacts, right? They build a bunch of tools. They write a constitution about what AI will do and will not do. People are mad about search generative experience or AI previews on the web. Google doesn't react the same way. And I'm wondering if you can square that circle. You think so?
That's so far from reality, right? I mean, I look at other players and how they've approached.
I mean, you're talking about OpenAI, which is just out there taking stuff, right?
In general, when you look at how we have approached search generative experience, even through a moment like this, the time we have taken to test, iterate, prioritize approaches, and the way we've done it over the years, I would say, I definitely disagree with the notion we don't listen, right? So we deeply care, we listen. Not everything we do people may agree. When you're running an ecosystem, you are balancing across different needs. But I would definitely think, and I hope we always do, because I think that's the essence of what makes a product successful.
Yeah. Let me talk about the other side of this. So there's search, and people are going to game search, and that's always going to happen, and that's a chicken and egg problem. The other thing that I see is happening is the web is being flooded with AI content. There was an example a few months ago where some unsavory SEO character said, here's this thing I just did. I stole a bunch of traffic from a competitor. I copied their sitemap. I fed it into an AI and had it generate me copy for a website that matched their sitemap. I put up this website. I stole a bunch of traffic from that. Generate me copy for a website that feed their sitemap.
Feed into AI.
I fed it into an AI and had it generate me copy for a website that matched their sitemap. I put up this website. I stole a bunch of traffic from that website, my competitor. I think that's a bad outcome. I don't think we want to incentivize that in any way, shape, or form. That's going to happen at scale, right? And more of the internet that we experience will be synthetic in some important way. How do you, on the one hand, build the systems that create the synthetic content for people, and on the other hand, rank it so that you're only getting the best stuff? Because at some point, the defining line for a lot of people is, I want stuff made by a human and not stuff made by an AI.
I think there are multiple parts to your question, right? So one, how do we sift through high quality from low quality? I literally view that as our mission statement. It's, and it is what has defined search over many, many years. I actually think people underestimate anytime you have these disruptive platform shifts, you're going to go through a phase like this. I have seen that teams invest so much, our entire search quality teams, been spending the last year, right, gearing up our ranking systems, et cetera, to better get at what is high quality content. I think the next decade, people who can do that better, who can sift through that, I think will.
Mình phải thấy một con gì nó bò. Má, con này con kiến ba khoang. Damn. Con này mà đốt thì bú luôn đấy. Từ đó. Full screen này. Thấy không? Mình cho nó đi bơi rồi. Sợ thế nhỉ? Đấy, nghe đồn kiến ba khoang nhiều lắm rồi mà. Chưa đâu phát nào. Hy vọng là không phải năm nay nhé.
Win out. I think you're right in your assessment that people will value human created experiences. I hope the data bears that out, and we have to be careful every time there's a new technology. There are old filmmakers, if you go and talk about CGI in films, they're going to react very emotionally.
Yeah.
Right. And there are still esteemed filmmakers who never use CGI in films. But then there are people who use it and produce great films, right? And so I think you can't just say anything with AI. You may be using AI to lay out, enhance video effects in your video, etc. But I agree with you. I think using AI to produce en masse content without adding any value, etc., I don't think is what users are looking for.
Yeah.
Right. But there is a big continuum, and over time, users are adapting. We are trying hard to make sure we do it in a responsible way, but also listening to what users actually find as high quality versus not.
Yeah.
And trying to get that balance right? And that continuum will look different a few years out than it is today. But I think I view it as the essence of what search quality is. And do I feel confident we will be able to approach it better than others? Yes. Right. And I think that's what defines the work we do.
For the listener, these have been a lot of subtle shots at OpenAI today. Can I put this into practice by showing you a search? I actually just did this search. It is a search for best Chromebook. As you know, I once...
Má hỏi ông không trả lời đâu đó.
It is a search. Can I put this into practice by showing you a search? I actually just...
Không trả lời luôn ạ.
just did this
Trả lời là không.
search. It is a search for best Chromebook. As you know, I once bought my mother a Chromebook Pixel. It's one of my favorite tech purchases of all time. So this is search for best Chromebook. I'm going to hit generate at the top. It's going to generate the answer. And then I'm going to do something terrifying, which is I'm going to hand my phone to the CEO of Google. This is my personal phone.
Yeah.
Don't dig through it. So you look at that, and you know that it's the same generation that I've seen earlier. I asked everybody through it. So you look at that, and you know that it's the same generation that
Best Chromebook. Battery life. Local hardware. Touchscreen.
I've seen earlier. I asked it for best Chromebook, and it says, here's some stuff you might think of. And then you scroll, and it's some Chromebooks. It doesn't say whether they're the best Chromebooks. And then it's a bunch of headlines, some of which are like Verge headlines, which are like, here are some best Chromebooks. That feels like the exact kind of thing that an AI generated search could answer in a better way. Like, do you think that's a good experience today? Is that a waypoint or is that the destination?
I think, look, you're showing me a query in which we didn't automatically generate the AI.
Well, there
overview.
was a button that said, do you want to do this?
But that's, let me push back, right? There's an important differentiation, right? There's a reason we are giving a view without the generated AI overview. And as a user, you're initiating an action, right? So we are respecting the user intent there. And when I scroll it, I see Chromebooks. I also see a whole set of links which I can go, which tell me all the ways you can think about Chromebooks.
Yeah.
You know, so I see a lot of links. So we both didn't show an AI overview in this case. As a user, you're generating the follow-up question. I think it's right that we respect the user intent.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, right, people will go somewhere else too, right? I think so.
But I'm saying the answer to the question, I did not write what is the best Chromebook. I just wrote best Chromebook. The answer, a thing that identifies itself as an answer, is not on that page. And the leap to I had to push the button to Google pushes the button for me and then says what it believes to be the answer is very small. And I'm wondering if you think a page like that today is the destination of the search experience, or if this is a waypoint and you can see a future better version of that experience.
Oh, I'll give you your phone back.
Please.
I'm tempted to check email right now out of habit. Look, but I think the direction of how these things will go, it's fully tough to predict. We are, users keep evolving, right? It's a more dynamic moment than ever. We are testing all of this, right? And and this is a case where we didn't trigger the AI overview because we felt like our AI overview is not necessarily the first experience we want to provide for that query, because what's underlying is maybe a better first look at the user.
Yeah.
Right. And those are all quality trade-offs we are making. But if the user is asking for a summary, right, we are summarizing and giving links. I think that seems like a reasonable direction to me.
Yeah. Can I show you? I'll show you another one. I'll show you another one where it did expand automatically. This one I only have screenshots for. So this is Dave Lee from Bloomberg did a search. He got an AI overview, and he just searched for JetBlue Mint Lounge SFO. And it just says the answer, which I think is fine. And that's the answer. If you swipe one over, I cannot believe I'm letting the CEO of Google swipe on my camera roll. But if you swipe one over, you see where it pulled from. You see the site it pulled from. It is a word for word rewrite of that site. This is the thing I'm getting at, right? Like,
sorry, you're saying
the AI generated preview of that answer, if you just look at where it came from, it is almost the same sentence that exists on the site, on the source of it. That's what I mean. It's at some point that the better experience is the AI preview, and it's just the thing that exists on all the sites underneath it. It's the same information.
In my experience,
so.
and that's not what users, look, the thing with search, we handle billions of queries. You can absolutely find a query and hand it to me and say, could we have done better on that query?
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. But when I look across, in many cases, part of what is making people respond positively to AI overviews is the summary we are providing clearly adds value, helps them look at things they may not have otherwise thought about. If you aren't adding value at that level,
yeah,
Càng thế.
I think people know otherwise thought about. Clearly adds value, helps them look at things they may not have otherwise thought about. If you aren't adding value at that level,
yeah,
I think people notice it over time, right? And I think that's the bar you're trying to meet. And not our data would show over 25 years, if we aren't doing something which users find valuable or enjoyable, they let us know right away.
Yeah.
Over and over again, we see that.
Căng, CEO.
And through this transition, everything is the opposite,
Yeah.
right? It's one of the biggest quality improvements we are driving in our product. People are valuing this experience. So, I think I would place a lot of, I think there's a general presumption that people don't know what they are doing,
Yeah.
which I disagree with strongly. Like, our people who use Google are savvy, they understand. And, so to me, I can give plenty of examples where I've used AI overviews as a user. I'm like, oh, this is giving context. Oh, maybe there are these dimensions I didn't even think in my original query, right? How do I expand upon it and look at it? Yeah.
Yeah. You've made oblique mention to OpenAI a few times, I think.
I actually haven't. I think
Well, you keep saying others to OpenAI a few times, I think.
look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. You've made
Đề cập gián tiếp. Oblique.
oblique mention.
Oblique. Xiên.
Oblique.
To OpenAI a few times, I think.
I actually haven't. I think
Well, you keep saying others. There's one other big competitor that is, I think, a little more.
I mean, you're putting words in my mouth, but that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Càng ngày.
I mean, you're putting words in my mouth, but that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I would say I saw OpenAI's demo the other day of GPT-4o Omni.
Omni.
It looked a lot like the demos you gave at I/O, right? This idea of multimodal search, the idea that you have this like character you can talk to. You had gems, which was the same kind of idea. It feels like there's a
Thế mới thấy anh Musk dạo chiến như nào. Mấy cái này nhầm nhò gì? Anh Musk mấy cái này anh Musk quẩy luôn đấy chứ. Làm sao mà đã căng được?
race to get to kind of the same outcome for a search-like experience or an agent-like experience. Do you feel the pressure from that competition?
Oh, I mean, this is no different from Siri and Alexa.
Yeah.
And we worked in an industry. I think when you're working in the technology industry, I think there is relentless innovation, right?
Mm-hmm.
We felt a few years ago, all of us building voice assistants. You could have asked the same version of this question, right? And what was Alexa trying to do? And what was Siri trying to do? So I think it's a natural extension of that. I think you have a new technology now, and it's evolving rapidly. Do I feel, I felt like it was a good week for technology. There was a lot of innovation I felt on Monday and Tuesday and so on. That's how I feel. And I think it's going to be that way for a while. I'd rather have it that way. You'd rather be in a place where the underlying technology is evolving, which means you can radically improve your experiences which you're putting out.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have that any time than a static phase in which you feel like you're not able to move forward fast. I think a lot of us have had this vision for what a powerful assistant can be, but we were held back by the underlying technology, not being able to, serve that goal.
Yeah.
I think we have a technology which is better able to serve that. That's why you're seeing the progress again. So I think that's exciting. To me, I look at it and say we can actually make Google Assistant a whole lot better. You're seeing visions of that with Project Astra, right? It's incredibly magical to me when I use it. So so I'm very excited by it.
Yeah. This brings me back to the first question I asked, right? Language versus intelligence.
Yeah.
To make these products, I think you need a core level of intelligence. Do you have in your head a measure of this is when it's going to be good enough, where I can trust this? On all of your demo slides, on all of OpenAI's demo slides, there's a disclaimer that says, check this info. And to me, it's ready when you don't need that anymore, right? You didn't have check this info at the bottom of the 10 blue links. You didn't have check this info at the bottom of featured snippets necessarily.
You're getting at a deeper point where hallucination is still an unsolved problem, right?
Yep.
I know it's in some ways it's an inherent feature. It's what makes these models very creative, right? It's why it can immediately write a poem about Thomas Jefferson in the style of Nilay. Right? It can do that, right? It's incredibly creative. But LLMs aren't necessarily the best approach to always
Yeah.
get at factuality, right? And which is part of why I feel excited about search, because in search we are bringing LLMs in a way, but we are grounding it with all the work we do in search and laying it with enough context. I think we can deliver a better experience from that perspective. But I think the reason you're seeing those disclaimers is because of the inherent nature, right? There are still times it's going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would look at that and underestimate how useful it can be at the same time. I think that would be a wrong way to think about it.
Yeah.
Google Lens is a good example, right? When we did Google Lens first, when we put it out, it would get, it didn't recognize all objects well. But the curve year on year has been pretty dramatic. And users are using it more and more. We get billions of queries now. We've had billions of queries now with Google Lens. It's because, the underlying image recognition paired with our knowledge entity understanding has dramatically expanded over time. So I would view it as a continuum, right? And I think, again, I go back to this saying, users vote with their feet, right? Fewer people used Lens in the first year. Yeah. We also didn't put it everywhere because we realized the limitations of the product.
When you talk to the DeepMind Google Brain team, is there on the roadmap a solution to the hallucination problem?
It's Google DeepMind, but are we making progress? Yes, we are. We have definitely made progress, when we look at metrics on factuality year on year. So we're all making it better, but it's not solved. Are there interesting ideas and approaches which they are working on? Yes. Yes, but time will tell, right? But I would view it as LLMs are an aspect of AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're working on AI in a much broader way, but it's an area where I think we're all working definitely to drive more progress.
All right, last question. I think it's the theme of this conversation. 5 years from now, this technology, the paradigm shift will be through it. It feels like. What does the best version of the web look like for you 5 years from now?
I hope the web is much richer in terms of modality. I think today, I feel like the way humans consume information, still not fully encapsulated in the web. Today, things exist in very different ways, right? You have web pages, you have YouTube, etc. But over time, I hope the web is much more multimodal. It's much more richer, much more interactive. It is a lot more stateful, which it's not today. So I view it as, while fully acknowledging the point, people may use AI to generate a lot of spam. I also feel every time there's a new wave of technology, people quite don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
When mobile came, everyone took web pages and shoved it into mobile applications. Then later people evolved really native mobile applications. So the way people use AI to actually solve new things, new use cases, etc., is yet to come. So when that happens, I think the web will be much, much richer too. So I think,
Yeah.
so you being, dynamically composing a UI in a way that makes sense for you, right? And different people have different needs, right? But today, you're not dynamically composing that UI.
Yeah.
AI can help you do that over time. You can also do it badly and wrongly, and people can use it shallowly. But there will be entrepreneurs who figure out a extraordinarily good way to do it, and out of it there'll be great new things to come. So, yeah.
Google creates a lot of incentives for development on the web through search, through Chrome, through everything that you do.
Yeah.
How do you make sure those incentives are aligned toward those goals? Because I think maybe the biggest thing here is that the web ecosystem is in a moment of change, and Google has a lot of trust to build and rebuild. How do you think about making sure those incentives point at the right goals?
Look, not everything is in Google's control. I wish I could influence what is the single toughest experience when I go to websites today. As a user, you can never you have a lot of cookie dialogues to accept, etc. Right? So I would argue there are many things outside. You can go poll 100 users, right? And But the incentives we would like to create. Look, I think, and there's a complex question, which is how do you reward originality, creativity, independent voice at whatever scale at which you're able to do, and give a chance for that to thrive in this content ecosystem we create, right? And that's what I think about. That's what the search team thinks about.
Yeah.
But I think it's an important principle, and I think it'll be important for the web and important for us as a company.
That's great. Well, Sundar, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for being on Decoder.
Thanks, Nilak. Greatly enjoyed it.
That's great.
I appreciate it.
Decoder.
Enjoy.
Thanks, Nilak. Greatly
Đoạn bắt tay này hơi kỳ này.
enjoyed it.
That's
Hơi kỳ. Mình cứ tưởng là đang định lấy xin cái gì.
great.
I appreciate it.
Ghế hơi thấp nhỉ. Ghế ngồi thấp vãi. Được. Xem mọi người comment ở dưới là gì.
Nilak, good to be
130, 148.000 view thì không nhiều lắm. Và nó là ít. Being okay with asking a real question. Nhìn lấy cook. But this one, Nilay là người phỏng vấn à? You always ask a serious challenging question, but this one it was crazy. Kind of to see a struggle so much. Yep. Giving the CEO of Google your own phone, show him that Google search if flaw were more didn't expect. Từ từ. Mình tò mò là cái điện thoại này điện thoại gì? iPhone. Cái điện iPhone thật ạ. Cái đấy à?
Today. Can I put this into practice by showing you a search? I actually just did this search.
Hơi kỳ à. Cầm iPhone là hơi kỳ, đưa CEO Google hơi kỳ à.
It is a search for best Chromebook.
iPhone rồi nè.
As you know, I once bought my mother a Chromebook Pixel. It's one of my favorite tech purchases of all time. So this is search for best Chromebook. I'm going to hit generate at the top. It's going to generate the answer. And then I'm going to do something terrifying, which is I'm going to hand my phone to the CEO of Google. This is my personal phone.
Yeah.
Don't dig through it. So you look at that and
Mình không, cái này mình không thích nha. Đưa iPhone cho CEO Google. Không, cái này nó nghiêm túc. This is the end of era.
yeah.
But I understand the sentiment, right? It's
Yep. Bây giờ là được 59 phút. Có thể xem cái gì đó ngắn ngắn hơn một chút được không ta? Trong cái list của mình toàn cái dài thôi. Toàn cái dài à? Thôi nào cỡ 5-7 phút nhỉ? Thì buổi sau xem cái này đi. Ít nhất là hai cái này. Cái này mình xem rồi. Còn cái này nữa này. Buổi sau xem cái này đầu tiên. Đi. Vậy đi. Hôm nay mình đi làm. Cũng không quá nhiều. Cũng nhẹ nhàng. Hôm nay làm nhẹ nhàng thôi. Xong rồi tối về thì cũng hơi mệt mệt đấy. Nhưng mà ăn uống vào xong bắt đầu ngồi và xem cái này thì cũng khá cuốn. Nên là bây giờ thấy cũng thoải mái chứ không mệt gì cả. Nhưng mà bởi vì là bây giờ nếu mà xem thêm thì nó hơi bị quá một chút rồi. Nên là thôi tạm dừng ở đây đi. Thứ tư 2 hôm nữa mình sẽ xem tiếp. Hẹn. Vậy ha. Cảm ơn đã theo dõi và hẹn gặp lại vào thứ tư 7.